Hello, everyone. It looks like I am live. This is my first time going live on YouTube. So I scheduled it, but then when it was time to go live, I'm thinking, okay, where do I go? But luckily, I was able to find it. So my name is Yvonne. Welcome to this live. It is our scheduled movie discussion. So, as you know, I am a licensed CPA and I really have a heart for entrepreneurs and small businesses, wanting to teach you guys the fundamentals, the financial fundamentals. So, as you are starting, operating, and growing your businesses, you have an understanding because oftentimes it's a subject that is sort of scary. No one really wants to tackle it, but it's something that's necessary. So, with this community that we are really building together, um, in order to make it fun as you learn the fundamentals, we will be doing movie discussions, book discussions, going through case studies, and then there are other things that are planned. And plus, I want to hear from you. If there's something that you would like to see, then let me know because that's something that we can work on. Okay. So today is our first movie discussion, and we're going to be discussing the movie Apple Mortgage Cake. So hopefully you had a chance to watch it. If you are an Amazon Prime member, it's included in your Amazon Prime membership. So it may have seemed like a short notice, but I recently started the community on my YouTube channel. So I wanted to get us moving forward and having fun and learning and all that great stuff. So even if you haven't had a chance to watch it, you can always go back and watch it. Now, moving forward, I will give you at least a 2-week notice in terms of what will be the movie as well as the book. You have a whole month practically. So you're able to read the book and participate in the discussions. Now, I'm new at building this YouTube channel, so I don't know how many of you all are interested in participating. The chat is open, so if you want to chat your participation, that's fine. If you want to come on screen, I can see if I can figure that out. But right now, I'm not really sure how to do that. Okay, but no worries. So again, the movie is the Apple Mortgage Cake, and we're going to talk a little bit about the movie. I'm not going to be on here long, maybe 10 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe up to a half an hour. We'll see how it goes. But we are going to discuss a little bit about the movie. I felt the movie was important because the main character, Angela Logan, she was faced with foreclosure. She actually inherited the home, but what I understood from the movie, she ended up getting a mortgage so she can do repairs on the home. And things did not work out with the contractor, and she really did not have the extra money to pay back the mortgage. And then that caused issues with her home nearing foreclosure. Plus, she also had taxes, real estate taxes that she had to pay. So she was very stressed about it, very really upset because she inherited the home, and so she wanted to be a good steward, but she found herself in a situation where she just did not have the money. Now she's a mother of teen. At the time, she was a mother of 3 teenage boys. By the way, this is a true story. She was a divorced mother of teenage boys, and she did have a love interest that entered her life. She met him before. He was a comedian. And let me just pull up some more information about the movie. I can share my screen, but I did practice and received some black screens when I played it back. So I don't want to take any chances this time. I'll practice again before the next. But she did have a love interest. His name was Melvin. And eventually they did get married. So I really liked how, as she was going through her situation of trying to save her home, he was very, very supportive, very supportive. She also had the support of friends and colleagues, and of course, her sons did what was necessary to pitch in. She only had like 10 days to come up with the money, and so what I want to do is talk about watching that movie. What did it demonstrate to you as someone who may have a side hustle or who is either interested in starting a business or perhaps you have a business? And so that's how I want to look at that movie from that angle. And so what I have on board today is the financial roadmap. This is a roadmap that I put together. It has 10 steps, and it just shows you what I feel as a professional, as an expert working with hundreds of entrepreneurs and small businesses and also studying my craft. What would be the ideal steps to take when you are starting a side hustle or a business in order to be successful? So, we're not going to go through, well, we might just go through the steps and see how they apply to her situation. Okay. I think that would be helpful. Of course, the movie only took us so far. So, we are going to also talk about where Angela Logan is today. Okay, which is good news. So, as I stated, she needed to make about $4,000 to pay the expenses to keep her home out of foreclosure. And she had about 10 days to do that. And she did not have a steady job, but she was volunteering her time. She was like a job counselor for a not for profit. Okay. And so she was sitting at the table with her family, and it was suggested that maybe she could sell apple cakes in order to make the money that she needed. And they figured she needed to sell about 100 apple cakes at $40 a cake in order to get the money that was needed. And so they decided to move forward with that idea. She immediately went out there and got the ingredients and started making apple cake. She did send out an email to individuals that she knew to say, hey, I'm in a situation. I need to make some money. Are you interested in my apple cakes? And first off, I felt that was very important, especially today with inflation and individuals being laid off or just not making enough. Sometimes it's necessary to have a side hustle. And I know that that term a lot of times is considered to be negative. And at one time, people did have to hustle, run numbers, and cook, clean, do whatever they needed to do in order to take care of their family, especially in the Black American community, where the term hustle and side hustle took on a new meaning. And today, individuals have to continue finding some way of making ends meet. So the term side hustle does not have to have negative connotation. It's about you doing what's necessary in order to take care of yourself and your family. But of course, you want to do it in integrity and you want to do it the right way. But it's understandable sometimes when you're under a crunch, you just want to get started. And that's exactly what Angela did. She just got started with her family, started baking the cakes, and initially it was a little slow, but it picked up when an obituary writer did an article about her about her efforts, and it really picked up. And we see the scene in the kitchen when the son is writing the numbers on the chalkboard in terms of how many cakes they have to bake, and the numbers are growing and growing and growing beyond the 100 that they felt that was needed. Now keep in mind, this is a movie, but they said they needed 100 for $4,000, but in actuality, they needed to consider the supplies or the cost of making those cakes. So technically, they needed more in order to have the money after the expenses in order to pay the mortgage as well as the real estate taxes. So it worked out. So, but what happened? What happened in the movie? Like a lot of folks, she just got started baking those cakes out of her home. There was an inspector that initially was knocking on her door because the contractors that was supposed to do the work on the home, they did not pull the proper permits. And we know before you start doing certain renovations or additions to a home, you need permits, building permits. And that did not happen by those shisty contractors. So initially, the inspector was knocking on the door for that reason. But what happened? She started knocking on the door because she found out, of course, through the article that Angela was baking cakes out of her home and she had to have a permit to do that. No, every state is different. In the state of Ohio, you could have a cottage kitchen where it does not require a license, but there are certain things that you can make, food products that you can make for your local community. And that includes cakes that do not require refrigeration, candies, spices, soup mixes, popcorn. But when you get into cakes that require refrigeration or other items that require refrigeration, then in the state of Ohio, where I live, I should say, because she was in New Jersey, she's in New Jersey, but I'm just giving an example of what happens in Ohio based on my knowledge. When you get into things that need to be refrigerated, like custard pies, then you are required to get a license and an inspection from the Department of Agriculture. So every state is different. But in her state, she needed to have a license. And so that inspector came knocking. And so the wonderful thing is, because Angela spoke up and she spoke up to her family and friends and her community, she allowed herself to be vulnerable. Sometimes when individuals are going through something, it's like, oh, I don't really want to tell anybody that I'm going through this. But hey, she was not asking for charity. She was giving consideration, like, hey, in exchange for this apple cake that was $40 in the movie, then the money that you give me will help me save my home. So because she was willing to be vulnerable, then she was able to get an offer from a local hotel who said, hey, you can come in and you can use our commercial kitchen in order to bake your cakes. So that was wonderful to see, because otherwise her operation would have just been shut down, but she was able to bake from that local hotel. And so then we know that Angela, despite I'll say, or in spite of what she was going through, she was still volunteering her time to assist individuals who were looking for jobs and needed assistance with career help with resume building and with interviewing. I'm sorry, I'm dealing with seasonal allergies. That's one reason why I'm wearing these glasses to hide my puffy eyes. But so she was still giving back and giving to others that needed. And that led to one of the young ladies that she was helping. She helped her so well with practicing her interviewing skills that the young lady landed a position with a company that actually sold cakes and pies and desserts. And when those items were sold, then it was able to help not for profits, I believe. And let me see if I can get the name of that company. I think it's Make. Give me 1 second. And I should have had this again. I considered using my share screen option, but I'm a little nervous. So I'm using my phone in order to get my little research. But I'll find it. Or maybe you can put it in the chat or the comment section later on. But it was some type of make a cake or bake a cake wish or something to that effect. And so they made Angela an offer like, hey, instead of you having to bake all these cakes and take this on yourself, even with having the access to the hotel commercial kitchen, because it was a lot of work. I mean, she had to stay up a lot of time just to meet the demands. And it was not only local demands, but she also had people reaching out nationally and I believe it even internationally, like, hey, I want to get your cake. I want to get your cake. So she was learning as she was going. But this company gave her the opportunity where they would take care of it themselves. Now, long term, when I did my research in terms of where she is today, that arrangement did not stick. And I don't know the backstory of why she did not continue to work with them, but she stopped working with them. And I know that um, she began to do like flea markets, and now she has a bakery where she bakes. Okay. So she still continues to make the cakes, but she takes on more of the responsibility for her cakes, for her dreams, and that's understandable. Okay. So you try something. If it doesn't work out for whatever reason, that's okay. And if the reason was not good, I do appreciate how the company and Angela, I did not see where they were trashing each other or saying anything negative. It just did not work out. But let's continue with the movie. So we know that she continued to bake and they figured out a way to get those cakes out to individuals. She was able to save her home. And of course, her romance interest, Melvin, that continued. And they actually became husband and wife. Now, I don't know their status today. That's none of my business. We're talking about her business, not her personal life per se. But I can imagine that they're still together considering the level of support that he showed her. And it was just such a beautiful addition to the movie by showing their romance. Okay. It even improved her youngest son's disposition, who was having a hard time with the situation that they were going through. And although it seemed that he would try to connect with his father for some type of stability, but in the end, he also came into the fold that that Angela built with her new relationship, which was great. So there were a lot of ups and downs in the movie. Her car broke down at one time, and again, you had the inspector. But it just goes to show that whenever you are starting a business or a side hustle, I want you to get used to hearing that word, although this community is for anyone who needs the support. So you could have been in business for 2 or more years, 5 or more years, but now you realize, like, hey, you kind of been struggling because you haven't really understood the financial aspect of running your business. Maybe you've been too dependent on bookkeepers and consultants, and now you realize, hey, you have to master the financial fundamentals. Okay, which is great because I'm here for it. I love accounting and finance and teaching and sharing. So you are in the right place as well. Okay, so let me see if there's anything else I can mention about the movie that would be relevant. So yeah, that's pretty much how the movie flows. So let's talk a little bit about what happened after the fact. Like when Angela, the real Angela, when she went national about she was on the local news, I should say, that that article written by that obituary writer or the obituarist led to local shows and even national shows where Angela was able to tell her story. And so I want to talk a little bit about what happened after the fact. Now, the movie came out in 2014, and the main character, Angela, was played by Kimberly Elise. And Kimberly is a great actress, and she's so natural. So she did a really good job, and pretty much everyone in the movie did a great job with acting. Okay. So we're not going to talk about ratings because at the end of the day, we are focused on the content of the movie. But it is a PG drama, or the movie was a PG drama, and it lasted about an hour and 37 minutes. And I felt that it was enough to keep your attention. It was a very heartwarming story. But again, Angela ended up in the national news telling her story. And that apple cake, which was a recipe that was passed down through her family, I meant to mention that. It was a recipe that passed down through her family. The apple cake became known as the apple mortgage cake because it saved her home. And so the movie is actually called Apple Mortgage Cake. Now, Angela, her branding around her her cake is mortgage apple cake. So I'm not really sure if she changed it or if they changed it, meaning the producers of the but nonetheless, it's the same thing. So let's look at what happened after she saved her home and she ended up going on local and national news channels. So She again continued to bake her cake. Even today, she continues to bake her cake. What surprised me though, and I'm like, am I having a Mandela effect or am I in the Matrix? But I remember around the time that she was in the news, because I remember watching her story and I thought it was really interesting. There was a family, an unrelated family, that came out and they basically did a whole copycat of what she did. And they started selling mortgage apple cakes or apple mortgage cakes. I don't remember which term that they use, but I don't remember their name. When I did research for this discussion, I could not find them anywhere online. But I remember the father was heavy set, and it was a mother, father, and maybe 2 to 3 children. And his family came out and they were baking the mortgage apple cake so they can also save their mortgage. And they even had a website that you could go to in order, it was a professional website that you can go to in order to order their cake. Again, doing research, I could not find any information out about this family. I'm hoping that they realized the optics of what they were doing and decided to not do that, go a different route. Or maybe Angela and her team, because eventually she spoke with someone or she figured it out herself how to do what was necessary to protect her idea. Maybe her team made sure that that company, that family stopped and that the internet was scrubbed of them. So if you remember the time when Angela was making the national news and you saw her story, do you remember that family? If so, let me know, because I'm thinking, I know I do, but now there's no trace of them. So we're going to kind of talk about that. And so this is a good time to jump into the financial roadmap and look at what Angela has done since starting her her efforts to raise money for her mortgage and her real estate taxes. Okay, so again, we're going to be going through this a little bit, and what I'll probably do eventually, and it's just weird when you trying to line it up to the camera. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I put like a PDF out there where you can download it and just have it. But as we progress as a community, I will create additional material. Now, I uploaded a video early this morning that did an overview of the financial roadmap. So when you get a chance, you want to watch that video. By the way, I'm looking at the time. We've been live for about 28 minutes. I thought it would be a quick 10 minutes, but no worries. This is good. So let's consider the financial roadmap and the steps that relate to Angela's story. Okay. And we're going to get back to that family situation as well. So the first step in the financial roadmap is defining your motivation. And so when you look at the movie, Angela absolutely defined her motivation. And she set SMART goals. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And so her motivation was what? She wanted to save her family home. She inherited that home and she wanted to be a good steward so it can pass to the next generation. So that was her motivation in terms of her smart goals in a movie. She wanted to simply sell 100 cakes for $40 in order to get the money to cover her mortgage and real estate taxes. So she was able to do those things. And the next step in the financial roadmap is brainstorming. So, how does that apply to Angela? We know that while sitting at the dinner table, they basically were brainstorming like, how can we come up with this money? We only have 10 days. And the suggestion was making the apple cakes. And then they continued to brainstorm throughout the movie because they had to address like downturns or closed doors, or they had to overcome hurdles. So brainstorming is not only about the initial product or service, but you want to continue to be nimble, flexible, creative when starting in operating a business. Okay, so they did brainstorm the apple cake. Being in compliance, that is the third step in the financial roadmap. What do we know? Initially, Angela didn't know anything about compliance. She was not really focused on compliance. Once they made a decision they were going to do the apple cake and make it the apple mortgage cake or the mortgage apple cake, what? They jumped right into making those cakes. They didn't think about it's being baked out of the home. And you got to be careful when you're cooking food or making food to sell to the public, even if it's your family and friends. And so, as I stated, some states regulate that, and you have to have licenses, and there are some exceptions. So, initially, she wasn't in compliance as it related to business licenses needed, but when the inspector came knocking on the door, Angela was able to move her operation to a commercial kitchen at the hotel. So she was able to take care of that. And that happens sometimes when you are in business, you're not really clear on what needs to be done, but you're good at your skill, your profession, your trade, and that's all you want to do. So compliance is very important. Notice is third on the list, or is the third step, even before what we're going to talk about next is structuring your business. And that's why I tell um, businesses that I work with, you got to deal with compliance, because if you don't, then you're going to face penalties and interest, even sanctions. You don't want to be in a position where they shut you down and there's no way that you can overcome that. So compliance is very, very important. Now, I do hear people say sometimes, well, I'm just going to ask for forgiveness later. And what that basically means is I'm going to just do whatever I need to do. And if it's an issue, I'll just say, hey, I didn't know, forgive me. I don't really like that approach. And please do not get comfortable with that approach. When you want to do something, as soon as possible, take some time to do some research to find out what is needed. Now, maybe in that moment, you may not have the money to pay it. So, one of the smart things that you can do is you can you can pre-sell items or have individuals pay you money up front, and of course you're going to sell a product or service at a profit. So the money you get from your profit, you want to immediately get in compliance immediately, meaning before you send one cake out the door, cookies or whatever, if you're doing it out of your home, you want to make sure you have what's necessary. So there's really no reasonable excuse for I'll ask for forgiveness later. I would say the only exception would be if there's like a gray area and it's unclear what needs to be done and you've made calls and no one has really been able to tell you for sure. then I would recommend, if there's a gray area, at least document your efforts. So if it comes up later, you can say, hey, I made this call to this organization on this date, and this is what Sally told me, this is what Sharon told me, and you're documenting. So, as I stated, the next step in a financial roadmap is structuring your business. Now, starting off, Angela, the movie did not say that she filed for an LLC or anything like that. I'm sure she did not initially. She just jumped out there as a sole proprietor, which is okay, especially if you don't have a lot of resources, because the financial roadmap, it supports entrepreneurs and business owners who have to bootstrap. One of the reasons why the financial reason why small businesses fail is being undercapitalized, not enough cash, not enough resources. So you really have to get used to operating like that and bootstrapping and being resourceful. Even if you do have deep pockets, be resourceful. Just don't spend money just because. And so maybe you do have to start off as a sole proprietor or even as a general partnership, although I never recommend a general partnership over getting um, some limits in terms of liability on your personal assets, especially when you have a partner. You don't want to be responsible for 100% of any type of um, debt incurred by that partnership. But we are going to dive deep as it relates to the financial roadmap. So we're going to talk about that. So initially, let me get this point out. Initially, I'm sure she started off as a sole proprietor, but today, and I confirmed with the New Jersey Secretary of State, today she absolutely has an LLC, and it is called the Mortgage Applicate LLC, I believe, and she was able to set that up in 2009. So that's good to see that she eventually structured herself to protect her personal assets, especially that home that she worked so hard to save, and that home that was inherited. And she wanted to make sure that it's passed on to her children. So, structuring the business becomes very, very important. And it's not always about limiting your personal liability, it may be minimizing your tax liability. I'm sorry, it's not about it's not always about protecting, I should say, your personal assets when you're deciding on a structure. It may even be about, or should be about, minimizing your tax liability. It should be about making the financial management of your business as simple as possible. Meaning, if you're not ready for an S corporation, which has higher administrative fees, although it will help you with minimizing your tax liability, but you have to be able to make enough money to justify that move. Okay. So the next step in a financial roadmap is managing inflows. And we're going to go ahead and do the other step, which is also managing outflows. Now, in the movie, of course, is a movie, and they can't cover everything, but um, it looks like Angela was able to find the money in order to get the supplies she needed to make the cakes. It never really did talk about where that money came from. Maybe it's from her efforts of coming up with the money to pay the mortgage before. She just used that. And then as she made sales, the pot grew. But in terms of managing inflows and outflows, you definitely want to consider where the money is coming from. Are you loaning the business money and the business has to pay you back later? Or you make it an investment in the business? So it becomes part of the capital or the equity in the business. In terms of outflows, are you are you paying out money for supplies where you're considering your pricing structure or your pricing strategy so that you have a decent profit margin? So after you sell, she was selling the cake for $40. We really don't know how much she was paying for supplies, but although it was enough money she made to pay her mortgage, but we really don't know how much of a profit she made. Yes, she charged $40, but how much was she paying out per cake for supplies like the eggs and the sugar? Okay. But you do have to be concerned about that as an entrepreneur or small business owner. And we're going to cover that a lot in this community to make sure that you are following the necessary pricing strategies, that you are building in a good markup so you have a decent profit. And we're going to approach, I should say, the pricing strategies differently when we're looking at if you're providing a product or service, if you're doing it full time. There are different methods that you should follow, because when you're pricing, especially if you're providing a service, you really do need to consider your personal expenses and not just randomly saying, okay, on my last job, they paid me $25 an hour. So that's what I'm going to charge. No, you need to consider your mortgage, your food, your gas, all those things to make sure that what you're charging for your service helps you to cover all of those things plus have a profit. So you may come in higher than your competition, but as long as you show your competitive edge or why you bring more value, then you should be okay. But we're going to talk about all of that. Let's stick to Angela. So after you look at managing your inflows and outflows, you also want to look at doing good. And Angela, she actually was doing good in the movie. Now, it was not directly related to her product. So she didn't say for every cake that I sell for $40, I'm going to give 10% or $4 to the Free Store Food Bank. So in her doing good in her business, she did not make it monetary where she was given a percentage of something, nor did she sponsor anything at the time, which is understandable because she was trying to save her home. So that was her focus. But she did volunteer her time at that community organization in order to help others. And she did it from her heart. It wasn't that she was looking for a payoff. But guess what? By doing that, the individual that they show her helping in the movie was able to open up doors for Angela because that individual had the confidence and it's I believe her name was Leanne. Leanne is the one who was getting help with interviewing from Angela. So she was still doing good because your time is important. The time that she was spending helping Leanne, she could have been using that time to bake cakes because remember just became overwhelmed. And Angela in the movie, she just had a lot of pride. She didn't really want to tell people what she was going through. She didn't really want to lean on her family and friends. She wanted to do a lot herself. So she was spending a lot of time baking cakes. But fortunately, she allowed Leanne to help her. She allowed her good friend to help her and her love interest to help her as well as her kids. So yes, she was doing good. um, Tracking transactions. And in the movie, except for them writing on that board and writing on sheets of paper in terms of where they are with what they've sold, there was no accounting system or bookkeeping, spreadsheets. And that's understandable in that moment. She was trying to figure things out. Um, I'm sure today that that she has some type of system today. So my thing is, and what I will be teaching as your coach, your CPA buddy, or however you want to describe me, in terms of building this community with you, is we're going to do a lot of talking about tracking the transactions, because even if you have a side hustle, a sole proprietorship, it's just basic and you could just throw it up in a spreadsheet. We're going to do a lot of talk about the benefit of having some type of accounting system or app. And Intuit is, I believe, based on my experience, they do have a very good option with QuickBooks. They have all types of options that you can get into, like a car. We're going to get you in this this accounting app. So if you're just a sole proprietor and maybe you're just doing the gig economy, or you're just selling a service, then we're going to get you into something that's simple and you can just have it on your phone and just swipe when you have a business expense, or you're going to connect your banking, and so it's going to automatically upload. So we are going to do that because that is necessary. And you want to get into the habit now while you're building your foundation as a business owner. You may start off with a side hustle, or you may start off with a one product or service, but you want to eventually scale. So you want to get into the habit of having an accounting system or app to help you do that, because they're so good today. Even with the use of artificial intelligence, a lot of the work can be done for you. But here's the point I want to make. It allows you to be able to see in real time where you are in terms of revenue and expenses, your profit margin. And when you learn how to read those financial statements, like your profit and loss, and your bank statement, and your cash flow statement or statement of cash flow, it allows you to get a good picture of where your business is, and it helps you to know where your business needs to go. And so that's very important when you're pricing, running sales, sponsoring, everything. And the number one financial reason why businesses fail is poor cash flow management. So that's one of my motivations for insisting upon, when you're tracking transactions, that you get into some type of system. Even if you start off with spreadsheets, but you get into some type of system that helps you manage cash flow. And you will thank me later when we get to this. And I want you to be open, not, get just freeze and say, "Oh my gosh, I don't like numbers." No, we're gonna make sure that it's fun for you. Okay, it's gonna be fun for you. So again, in the movie, it really didn't talk about that, but I'm sure Angela is doing that today. Um, in terms of the next step is tax strategizing. And you definitely want to consider your tax liability when you are selecting your business structure. So even in initially, you may be a sole proprietor, but depending on how much money you make, there there's probably justification for you to up the ante to like a sole proprietor, I'm sorry, an S corp, where you're able to work on saving on your tax liability. Tax strategizing, there are so many different ways that you can strategize in order to save on your taxes. Now, what I will say about Angela, it was not addressed in the movie, but she had four boys. And I believe all of them were under the age of 18. So hopefully she was able to get with an expert, a financial advisor who put her sons on payroll, because that's one of the strategies. And usually it's your children between the ages like 12 and 17, but nonetheless, you can pay them up to the standard deduction and be able to deduct that expense from your revenue. And so you're really passing along money to your children that you're not having to pay taxes on. Now, I'm simplifying it. There are always exceptions or things to look out for, but that's why you definitely want to work with, and we're going to talk about this next, with building the right team, which includes your financial advisors. But my point is, with those four boys, I hope they had her sons on payroll. So, considering all those cakes that she was selling, and trust me, you're going to find out in a minute, those cakes, those cakes increased in price. They're no longer just $40, okay? So that helps to reduce her taxable income, that strategy. And again, there are other ways. Maxing out your solo 401ks, your HSAs. It goes on and on and on. It just depends on your situation. So, what I want to talk about quickly is, or let's just building a team. So, yeah, she did build a team in the movie. She had her love interest. She had her best friend. Her best friend, I believe her name was Gloria. That was the name of her best friend in the movie. And so she had her best friend, and she had her sons. So she did build a team of support. But you also have to build a team of starting with, or not necessarily starting with, but definitely your financial advisors. Okay. Now there is a CPA shortage, and so it can be difficult for a business to find a CPA if you're interested in one. Um, that's one reason why I decided to go back into private practice, because I had been out of practice for years. Um, I was just a little turned off by my experience. And I just said, you know what, I would rather work in corporate. But every now and then I would do things for, not every now and then, but I would continue to do things, but to officially have a firm where I'm operating it full time is something that I decided to really focus on now. But I decided to build the firm around my avatar, or who I feel is an ideal client. And yeah, we're going to talk about that as well. Um, in business, making sure you're serving the client or the customers who you feel are ideal for what you're offering, and turn them into ambassadors. But let's get back to the the financial advisors. And so, although there may be a CPA shortage, you can still get the help that you need. And so, you have companies like Intuit and even smaller companies that hire CPAs for the type of products and services that they offer. So you can always sign up for a subscription. You still have CPAs that are out there that have their businesses that you can work with and find a good fit. Hopefully, more CPAs will go to the subscription model. I know I use that because I know that my clients want to know what it's going to cost up front, and they don't necessarily care for the hourly rate. So hopefully more smaller CPA firms will do the subscription model. Um, but any rate, what I do suggest though is whoever you decide to work with, that you work with someone who is certified or licensed. And that could be a certified bookkeeper, certified public accountant. Um, of course, for attorneys, if you're working with a tax attorney, they don't have a particular certification, but you do want to make sure that individuals are properly licensed, but they're going to have a license. So a license or certification. So there are 4 reasons why I'm saying that with your advisors, be it financial or legal, you definitely want to work with individuals that are certified. And the number one reason is that they have demonstrated their level of knowledge. They've been tested. No, it doesn't mean that they know everything, because professionals will specialize, they may have specialized knowledge, but I'm saying they have demonstrated their level of knowledge. Number 2, they are required to do continuing education. So they continue to learn, they continue to learn the new tax laws, the new changes within their industry, within their profession. So that's very, very important. Number 3, they're held to a code of ethics or a code of standards. So organizations that actually license them or certify them, they lay out in black and white how they are expected to conduct themselves, which is very important. And number 4, if for some reason you deal with someone who is licensed or certified and there is an issue, there is negligence, you can file a complaint or report to the organization that license or give them the certification. Now, I'm not talking about situations where you all just have a disagreement, you bump heads, your personalities just don't work. You don't want to ruin someone's livelihood, someone's career. Sometimes it's best just to settle the bill and move on, or just decide to just move on. It's not working. I'm talking about in situations where something happens where it's egregious, it's negligent, then you want to be able to report that individual. And by using someone who's licensed or certified, you have that, as compared to someone who's just out there working and they mess up. You may not have that recourse unless, of course, there's some type of criminal issue. Perhaps they'll be criminally charged. But if it's not criminal in nature, you want to have some type of recourse. So that's the reason why I say that. It's not because I'm being, uppity or whatever, but it means something when someone takes the time. But it does mean something, I should say, when someone takes the time to get licensed or certified. Okay. Now, in terms of building a team, finding a business coach or mentor. Now, in the movie, we didn't see that happening, but I'm sure Angela took that opportunity later to find someone who can help her with establishing her business and giving her feedback and help. I wanted to shout out SCORE, SCORE.org. That is a not-for-profit organization that offers free mentoring and education. And so definitely get a mentor. We all need mentors or coaches for various reasons. And then in terms of building a team, this is going to sound odd, but you may need to get a therapist because when you are building a business, you take your whole personality with you. So if you have a hard time saying no, if you have a hard time dealing with others because maybe you just have an A-type personality, or maybe you are a little shy, going to therapy to kind of work on yourself can improve the success of your business. Or maybe you deal with perfectionism. Some of us do. And a therapist can help you sort out being so hard on yourself so you can focus on growing your business. So, consider making that part of your team. So, that's pretty much it as it relates to the financial roadmap and comparing Angela's experience in the Apple Mortgage Cake movie to the financial roadmap. But again, we're going to dig deeper into this later, but this is just to give us a start. Okay. So I have a surprise. I have a surprise. So, as I stated, Angela is no longer selling those Apple Mortgage Cakes for only $40. How do I know? Because guess what? For this discussion, I ordered one. So, as I stated, she was no longer with that Make a Cake Wish organization. Now you can buy her Apple Mortgage Cakes or Mortgage Apple Cakes. You can buy them at Amazon.com, or you can buy them at goldbelly.com. And so I ended up getting mine through Amazon. And I got it. I got it. Now, it came, and the packaging, I want to make it clear because I've never ordered a cake through the mail. And I was a little nervous about that, especially because there was a particular individual that had a bakery that was mailing cakes, and people were talking about how the cakes came molded, and they were, just did not come in a good packaging was busted. It was just a mess. And so I don't want to say any names because I don't want any smoke. I'm just over here minding my own business. Okay, Barry. So I will answer that question. I paid $89.99 for this cake from getting it off of Amazon. And I don't regret it because at the end of the day, it's about supporting small businesses. And we are taking the time to do a story about Angela Logan. And there are a couple of things that I want to make sure that I mention before we get off this live. So yes, it was $89.99. So I've never paid that much for a cake. And well, yes, that's well, a cake so small, I should say. But no worries, I'm not complaining. And I think Gold Belly was a little cheaper at about maybe $79, but about $10 cheaper. So it came with that nice tin, plus it came with just letting us know about the movie. And it came with a thank you card. Barry, I haven't tried it yet. I'm getting ready to try it in a minute. So I'm going to talk a second about it and then I'm going to cut it and try it. And she reminded us that she was on Oprah, CNN, and that in 2023 she made the list of Oprah's favorite things. So this mortgage apple cake is supposed to be really really good. So I'm excited about trying it. I took out the good dish to try it, but I wanted to give credit before I cut it, Barry. So just give me a second. So I've heard the horror stories about this individual that had a bakery that was sending cakes out, and people were getting the cakes and they were molded and all that other stuff. So I was a little concerned. But to Angela's credit, um, the cake was wrapped. It took a lot of effort to get to the cake. It was wrapped really well. It had ice packs surrounding the actual cake. And then the cake was down in the tin. Then the tin was inside of a box that had more ice packs, just little ice packs. I actually saved them. And also, the cake was mailed frozen and it gives you thawing instructions. And I actually put it in a refrigerator and it's still cold. So I didn't take it out in enough time, but no worries. I'm just pleased the way the cake was mailed to me. So, with that being said, I'm going to cut the cake. And this is how it looks. Don't judge it because, it had to be mailed and it's still it's still cold. So, but nonetheless, when it thaws out a little bit, I'll be able to even out the icing and everything. So it's good. It's all good. So I'm going to cut the cake down and try it. And the rest of it, I'm going to freeze because I don't need to sit up here and eat all this cake, even over a period of time. Although the ingredients are very whole ingredients, no, it's made with good ingredients, I should say. So I'm going to try. I just cut myself a very small piece. That's a very small piece. And so, but before I taste the cake, I did want to talk about something that was very good in terms of what she did. And so we're going to go back to being in compliance. And what I want to say is when we think about compliance, there are third parties or external organizations where we have to comply. And that could be with your Department of Agriculture, it could be with your Secretary of State, just Attorney General, you name it. There are different ways that you may have to comply. There's also internal compliance, so things that you do within your business that are not required by third parties, but that are just good for doing. And yes, Barry, yes, the packaging was added to the price, but we're going to talk about that. I don't mean to go off on these tangents, but let's address that because oftentimes when individuals set prices, again, the price strategy, oftentimes they do what is called like a um what's the word I'm looking for? Let me look that up quickly because I took my little notes. Yeah, sometimes businesses just do what's called the cost plus pricing, or it's basically they take their the what they had to pay for supplies, then they mark it up by say 35%, and then that's the price they set. But sometimes that's not ideal. So, you may be looking at the market and looking at your competition and say, well, my competition is only charging um, $40 for this, so I don't really want to charge more. But guess what? You have to do what is necessary. So I just sat here and I bragged about how she packed the cake was so well. It was great. And yeah, the cake was frozen and the icing needs to be spread out, but she wanted to make sure that that cake was delivered properly. And I, as a consumer, would have confidence in what I received. And I just also told you about this individual that was selling cakes and from the South. I'll just say that. And people were complaining about how the cakes were not packaged well, how they were molded and all that. So you, as a business owner, in order to provide the best product or service, you have to be willing to do what's necessary, and then be willing to add on to the price of your cake for individuals who don't mind paying it in order to have what is best and not have to deal with bad stuff. So yeah, it is. 89.99 is still a lot of money, but again, it was the exception. I will not be likely ordering it again, but I still got to taste it, so who knows. But it was a good experience moving forward with other movie discussions and book discussions. The products or the services that are related, they're much more affordable. The next movie discussion, the product, and I will be announcing the next movie at the beginning of the month. So you have 2 weeks, because we're going to do movie discussions every 2 weeks. I'm sorry, movie discussions the second Sunday of the month, and the book discussion the fourth Sunday of the month. So you'll have at least 2 weeks when I announce to watch the movie. The next movie is really good. It's an older movie too. And then the book, you're going to have at least a month in order to read the book. But at any rate, let's taste. Oh, I'm so nervous. Because I'm not good with hiding reactions, but I'm hoping for the best. So let's see. Mm, this is good. Oh gosh. Excuse me. Don't worry, I cough when I eat a lot of times. But although it was refrigerated and I took it out like 10 minutes before this movie discussion, it is still very moist. It is very moist. I'm not coughing because the cake. Sometimes I deal with acid reflux, and if you also, sometimes when you eat food, it hits that spot and you cough. So it's not the cake. It's moist. It has nice spices in it. And it tastes like the icing is like a cheesecake icing or something. It's very good. Oh gosh. See, I said, ooh, I'm going to just cut it and try it for the movie discussion and put the rest in the freezer. But I think I'm just going to cut a fourth of it and leave it out, and then put the rest in the freezer. No, I'm going to cut it into fourths, and I'm going to freeze it by the fourth and just keep a fourth out. Because this is good and I just do not want the temptation, okay? Because I work very hard to eat low carb, This is good, Angela. Thank you. Mm-mm-mm. Now I see why it's one of Oprah's favorite things. And I can taste the apples. Like it looks like that's like a piece of apple. I can taste the apples and feel the texture of the apples in my mouth as a contrast to the moist cake, but the apples are not like big and chunky and overwhelming. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy. That was very good. Yes, Barry. Yes, the apples definitely add to the cake, but overall, the cake is just like moist. And it's still, oh my, okay, let's shift. Okay, so we're getting ready to wrap this up, but there is one thing that I wanted to talk about that's very important. So remember when I was talking about being in compliance, and I was saying how you have external compliance like needing business licenses and permits, then sometimes you can do like internal compliance or internal controls, which is good. One big example of that is safeguarding your assets that you have, especially your checking account. Speaking of Oprah, I think she said that she was told by Bill Cosby to always sign your checks. So that's a good idea in terms of building your business. You really don't want to give people access to your checking account. The exception would be if your partner was your spouse, or if you were in a partnership and that's what you all agreed on, and then rules surrounding that checking account. But in terms of like bookkeepers and consultants, no, you don't give people access to your bank account like that. And we're going to talk about situations where that went south. But here's the point I'm trying to make. Also, compliance, I talked about how there are some things that are considered to be good business practices that you should do. And one of those is, if you are in business, you have a brand, you have a product or service, and you know that's something that you're going to build. And it's even if you have a side hustle, like side hustles are informal, but they're still businesses. What I recommend is that you trademark your brand or trademark the name of your business. And one thing you can do initially is with your local Secretary of State, you want to at least use a trade name, or sometimes it's called fictitious name. You want to at least register that. That's going to be more affordable. Like, I think a lot of states you're talking less than $50. So you want to at least locally start using that name and claim that name so no one else can. But when you know that your product and service is going to go national, I mean, it may even go international, but even national, you want to do a trademark with the US Patent and Trademark Office. Okay. Um, that can be confusing or even costly. But I am so happy to see that when I looked up, I did a trademark search. I saw where Angela registered her trademark, and I'm so happy about that. And perhaps that's the reason why that family disappeared, because I'm telling you, it was like they just literally just did a whole copycat. And so maybe that's why that family disappeared, because Angela ended up getting a trademark on her product. She did it as mortgage apple cake. Okay. And so, yeah. And as I stated, it can seem too expensive or overwhelming. Like, I'm a licensed CPA, I'm not an attorney, and I tried to do it myself with trademarks for my brands. And I'm going to share some of those later. Plus, I'm yet launching, as just like you guys are launching. So I look forward to sharing my step by steps. But my point is, I tried to do it myself. And it's not funny because it was a waste of money, but it was a lesson learned. I just thought, okay, can't be this hard. Let me get a book. And it did not work. And my trademark, it went to dead because I didn't know how to do it. So what I ended up doing, because a lot of these large companies are offering subscriptions and accounting services into it, and Rocket Lawyer for legal services. So I signed up for a Rocket Lawyer membership. It was very, to me, it was affordable because I thought it was going to be more. And when I signed up for the membership, I was able to get a discount on their trademark services. So I ended up having a trademark attorney, someone who specialized in trademarks, not an attorney that did estate planning or business contracts. No, he specialized in trademarks. And I was able to work with an attorney in order to get my trademarks filed. And I would continue to do that moving forward. But he shared with me that, and I don't know where he got this statistic. I didn't look it up to confirm, but I trust what he's telling me is accurate. But he said about 3% of those who DIY their trademarks, they don't get them approved. And he said that likely I just did not check a box or something. But at any rate, my point is, I love, love, love how Angela, once she was able to get through the point of saving her home and then building her business, that she definitely got her idea trademarked. So again, when you're starting off, you at least want to do a trade name or fictitious name on your state level through the Secretary of State. But as soon as you get the money and you know that you're going national, you need to file that trademark. Now, it takes over a year for them to review it and approve it, or come back for information, but you are ahead of individuals like that family who wanted to ride Angela's wave. And it's not to say that maybe they didn't have a legitimate reason. Maybe they were facing mortgage foreclosure, and they were trying to look for a creative way, and they admired her, whatever the reasons may be. But I'm happy to see that she was able to protect herself. So that's some of the things that we're going to talk about. Although we're doing a financial roadmap, but within that roadmap, you got a lot of legal things that you have to consider, like your partnership agreements if you go that route. And you never should operate a partnership without a partnership agreement. It needs to be in black and white. And there are key things in the partnership agreement that impact how your accounting or bookkeeping will be done. But we'll talk about that later. So that's pretty much it. I really, really enjoyed the movie. And I've watched it a couple of times. And hopefully, while watching this live, you will feel compelled, if you haven't already, to go watch the movie. Again, the next movie will be announced at the beginning of next month, and I'm excited about that one. I've watched that a couple of times, and even the book will be announced. So thank you so much for participating. Thank you so much, Barry, for participating in the chat. And yes, I can absolutely say the cake was very, very good. So when I get off this live, I'm going to cut myself another small sliver. I mean it, because I cannot um, eat all this cake. I will just crash and not get things done today. And I got a lot of stuff to do today. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to additional discussions. And please remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And if you haven't already, you want to sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter comes out weekly, and it includes additional tips, tools, and tactics that you need for the financial management of your business. And I just also wanted to make a point before we go. If you notice with the financial roadmap, again, as I talked about, it really speaks to individuals that understand that you should master the fundamentals. It relies on bootstrapping, doing good, and there's one more thing that I wanted to mention. So let me just look at my cheat sheet right quick. Oh, and then also finding creative ways to get money for your business without giving away your equity. And so, again, we're going to talk about all of that and continue to do these things. Sign up for the newsletter. You can visit my website and see what I offer, which includes group coaching. So when you're ready to do a deeper dive and you want to do it with me and some of your peers live weekly, then make sure you sign up for the group coaching. Okay. Take care and have a wonderful day. Okay. Thanks for participating.